Did you know that there is a direct connection between what we eat and climate change? I can almost certainly say that if we were in the same room and I would have asked how many of you like eating animals products such as meat, milks, eggs, most of you would raise your hands. I know I would, but something made me change my ways. You see, by connecting the dots between what I used to enjoy eating to the consequences of modern factory farming, I learned not only about the morality of that choice toward animals, but also about the morality of that choice toward the earth and climate change, and even human health. Hi, my name is Michal. I'm a PhD student from Tel Aviv University, the School of Political Science, Government and International Relationship. In my dissertation, I write about the processes of social and public delegitimation and legitimation toward human usage of animals. I ask, why are vegan diets on the rise? Why do you see these plant-based diet products on the shop recently? In the presentation, I'll focus on climate change as one of the factors that can cause delegitimation toward factory farming. Because of the connection between factory farming, which is where most of the animal products come from today, and climate change. I'll suggest that there is importance these days to encourage the reduction of animal products for animal consumption, not only because of climate change consequences, but also because of the other consequences of factory farming, the consequences of human and animal health and morality toward animals. But there are many challenges involved in doing so. People have always eaten animals products. We are used to it. This is the normal thing for us. I suggest that one of the ways to face these challenges, is to increase empathy toward the animals we eat. In general, what causes the climate change are the greenhouse gases, which cause the greenhouse effect. There were always greenhouse gases emission, but what's new in this time, is that since the Industrial Revolution, the amount of greenhouse gases are significantly growing because of human activities. When we think about climate change, we mostly don't think about factory farming, but factory farming is the major cause of the greenhouse gases emitted from agriculture. That is mainly because of the methane which the cow produce and because of the deforestation. So, what we see in this graph? We see that agriculture occupies a considerable part from all habitable land, and livestock, which is another word for factory farming, occupies 77% part from all agricultural land. However, it's responsible of only 18% from all the global calorie supply, and 37% of protein supply. So the question of pros versus cons is thus really relevant to ask in this case. As we've seen before, one of the factors that lead to climate change is the deforestation of forests. It happens especially in the Amazonas, in South America, especially in Brazil. And we know today that 70% from the burned area has been announced as area of beef companies after that. Most of the food that is sent to feed the animals in the factory farming around the world, food such as genetic soy, is being imported from South America, especially from the Amazonas area. What we see here in the picture is the connection between cows and methane. One of the greenhouse gases that cause climate change is methane. So we know that cows produce a lot of methane through her digestive processes, through her stomach. So now one can ask, what should we do with all the cows? But the thing is that we humans produce cows to satisfy our needs. So if there will be maybe less cows in the world, it will help the climate change situation. When talking about climate change issues, the main focus is on other factors such as other industries and cars, which is very important to talk about. However, the connection between factory farming and global warming, which is also important, is often muted, although there are many studies that show the connection. This is why in 2017, 200 experts wrote a letter which called to international institutions to tackle the issue more seriously. Arcari, an Australian researcher, made a discourse analysis of significant global warming reports written by the UN and many other international institutions, and she shows that the connection between factory farming and global warming is absent, even though the knowledge about the connection is known. We can see a change in the discourse recently. The UN and the European Union are now tackling the issue much more seriously. In the last report, which written by the UN Committee for Climate Change, there was a huge focus on factory farming, and the committee suggests that humans should consume less meat. They urge that countries should face the issue and think about ways to reduce animal products consumption, especially meat and milk. The European Union even had an idea to raise the tax over meat products, but for now it's just an idea. So, let's make a little bit order. Until now we talked about the connection between factory farming and climate change, but there are more consequences. There are the consequences on animal and human health. To produce animal products efficiently and cost-effectively, producers must act on the quantity principle, providing as many products as possible while minimizing the cost. This is why animals are fed a poor quality level diet. The last consequences of the factory farming is the factory practice towards the animals. Just imagine yourself stuck in the elevator with many other people. This is not a nice feeling, but this is probably what the animals feel, and worse than that. There are many moral questions that we, as humans, we should ask ourselves. The economic logic puts the vast majority of animals in the food industry in closed facilities, away from the public eyes, sometimes crowding them to death. The fact that we don't see the animals make it easy for us to cooperate with this kind of practice. Not to question where the food we eat comes from, but the moral consequences of the animal condition should be always in our minds. The global food economy does not treat animals as sentient and suffering creatures, but as machines. It is heartless and soulless, which reflects in practice such as separating calves from their mothers immediately when they born, crushing chicks, and making artificial insemination. Why do we go on eating animal products as usual, even though there are lots of consequences? We can say that maybe some of us, and I think most of us, don't really know or don't think about the consequences. But even if we do, will we stop? Will we decrease the amount of consumption? Here are three reasons that maybe explain the question. One reason is that people just like animal products. I love animal products, and it was really hard for me to decrease the amount or even to stop. The second is carnism, which I will now explain. And the third is the industry strategic rhetoric, which I will also explain. One of the reasons that people deny the consequences of factory farming, according to Joy Melanie, is carnism. Carnism is a belief system, like we have vegetarianism and veganism and liberalism and realism. We have also got carnism. So Joy, in her work, in her dissertation, she interviewed many people, and she argued that the carnism is a belief system. It's what most of us think about the question of eating animals. So most of us think that eating animals product, is the normal things to do. Right, everyone is doing it, so why shouldn't I? Second, it's the natural thing to do. People always eat animals during the history. And third, this is necessarily for us, right, for humans. In order to live well, we must eat animal products. So this is a huge boundary, a huge obstacle. I mean, if we think this way, so why shouldn't we consume animals? So why should we reduce our consumption of animals? Another factor that contributes to the denial of the question of factory farming and its consequences is the industry strategic rhetoric. So when we think about how the animals are being grown or where the food comes from, we don't think about these small cages, right? We think about a cow living in a green area, and we think that because of the industry strategic rhetoric. I mean, if you looked at the advertisement, for example, so we don't see what's really going on in reality. On the box that we buy, there is statement like, for example, happy family or happy cow. So the idea of how animals are really being grown and what is really happening is kind of hide away from us. But as I say at the beginning of the presentation, there is a change. Many people do decrease the consumption of animal products. There are a lot of alternatives at the supermarkets. On Google Trend, the percent of people interested in the word vegan has increased dramatically. There is a reason why people call in this area the age of veganism. However, it's important to increase the awareness of the factory farming consequences and to make actions. Which actions can be done? Actions can be done by the people themselves, but also by the government. So how can we tackle and deal the factory farming consequences as a society, as a public? One economic attitude would claim that the government and international institutions should not intervene at all. The Invisible Hand by Will Smith will do the work. We can see today that the increase of plant-based products happens because of the free market, actually. If we think of plant-based burgers, we've got today Beyond Meat, which was the primary company to lead. But then more companies established and joined, for example, Impossible. Another way to think about it is the opposite. Perhaps government intervention may help. But I guess that government won't act so quickly, especially if there is public delegitimation toward their actions. So what's really important to think about is to think about ways to change the public attitude toward animal products, by increasing empathy towards animals, for example. And this is where perhaps education can make a change, whether NGOs or formal education. So here are 4 challenging points that I think it's important to pay attention to when talking about how to increase empathy toward animals. One challenge is the conflict of interest. Many people think that our, human interests, conflict with those of the animals. We think that we must consume meat and milk to get important nutrition. We think consuming animal products is essential. My claim is not that animal products are not necessarily necessary. Perhaps it is necessary, but this is exactly what we need to ask. Does consuming animal products is really necessary? It's important to encourage critical thinking about these questions. Education system, whereas NGOs or formal schools, can teach, for example, human history from many perspectives. Studying human history can teach when in history humans consume animal products, where and how much. During history, humans consume animal products, but not the amount we consume today, and not the same way we consume today, not even close to. Also, not all humans consume animal products. The Hebrew community at Israel consume only plant-based products and they live really well. The point is that education can encourage discussion and critical thinking about these issues. Another challenge is that animals cannot resist to humans. Unlike the prehistorical times when humans want to hunt animals, they had to fight with them, so animals could resist. But these days animals, they live in small cages and the technology kind of doesn't let them the opportunity to resist. So I think that we can maybe learn on educational institution about the body language of animals and what it means for animals to resist in ways that we don't know. And today many researchers in zoology, for example, they research this question. And they realize that animals have many ways to resist to humans, ways that we may not notice if we are not going to talk about them. The third major challenge, I think it's major challenge, is the geographic challenge. It's hard to care for something that we don't see, that we don't feel. And indeed, factory farming is usually located in far places, unlike the past when humans would raise the animals themselves. Take for example, as a contra, pets. Many people love pets. We care for dogs and cats because we're close to them, we get to know them. But if we don't see, we don't care. If we don't see, we can deny that other animals, not only pets, can feel as well. One way to overcome this challenge is to teach with videos and pictures showing that animals such as cows and pigs and chicken also feel pain and empathy. They can also use tools and have abilities similar to pets and also similar to humans. They suffer and they feel happy and depressed. They are sentient beings. And another way to overcome the challenge and to show that other animals also have feeling is to take tours to freedom farming and to show how animals behave in freedom places. In Israel, there is a freedom animal farming which makes tours to classes. Closing the geographic gap between humans and other animals can make humans care more about animals like we care from pets. The last challenge is the challenge of the language. Language creates reality. When we separate humans from animals category when speaking, we create the idea that humans are not animals themselves. If you believe that humans are not animals, then it makes sense. But if you think that humans are also animals, like modern science determines, why should we separate humans from the category of animals when speaking? We can say humans and other animals, for example. This may change the perspective that humans are a separated and superior biological kingdom from other animals. However, not all boundaries are easy to break. Cultural challenges. Imagine Thanksgiving without a turkey, for example. More and more people do celebrate Thanksgiving without turkey every year, but it's still a long-lasting tradition that will probably remain so in the near future. This is a cultural challenge that is difficult to overcome. Second, anthropocentric point of view. The idea that humans are above animals. Because we have different cognitive abilities, we have more value in the world, and thus we can treat other animals without taking their feeling into account. This is an obstacle, a challenge. Third, psychological reason for eating animals. Studies show that people who possess psychological needs to dominate over others tend to eat more animal products. And the last is the terror management theory. The human denies death. Thus, eating animals gives humans the feeling that we are above nature. These are all challenges that cannot break so easily. That's the end of the presentation. Thank you for being until now with me. I really hope we will work to promote more moral education toward animals and climate change. If you have questions, I'm here for you, and I hope we will stay in touch. Bye bye!